You're walking down a deserted road, the darkness envelopes you, and suddenly, you hear the sound of rustling leaves, followed by an eerie silence. This is the moment that changed everything in Lake County, Illinois, where a gruesome discovery would uncover a web of terror and deception, leading investigators on a perilous journey to catch a suspected serial killer. It was a typical autumn evening in Lake County, the kind of night where the mist rolls in, and the trees seem to whisper to each other. But amidst this serene backdrop, a sense of unease settled over the small community. It started with a missing persons report, a young individual who had failed to return home after a night out with friends. As the hours ticked by, the family's concern grew, and soon, the authorities were involved. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of a nightmare that would haunt the county for years to come. The search parties combed through the woods, their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the trees, but there was no sign of the missing person. It wasn't until the next morning, when a passerby stumbled upon a body, that the true horror began to unravel. You are that passerby, walking down the deserted road, the only sound being the crunch of gravel beneath your feet. And then, you see it, a lifeless body, cold and unresponsive, lying in a pool of blood. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and decay, and you can't help but wonder, what happened here? As the news of the body spread, the community was thrown into chaos. The authorities quickly cordoned off the area, and a team of detectives was dispatched to the scene. They began to survey the area, taking note of every detail, from the position of the body to the surrounding environment. The air was thick with tension as they worked to piece together the events of the previous night. You are one of the detectives, kneeling beside the body, taking in the gruesome details. The smell of blood and decay fills your nostrils, and you can't help but wonder, what kind of person could commit such a heinous crime? As you examine the body, you notice a small piece of paper clutched in the victim's hand, a cryptic message scrawled on it in red ink. The message reads, "You'll never catch me." The words send a chill down your spine, and you realize that this is more than just a random act of violence, it's a game of cat and mouse, and the killer is always one step ahead. As the investigation unfolded, the detectives began to piece together the events of the previous night. They interviewed witnesses, scoured the area for evidence, and analyzed the cryptic message found on the body. The more they dug, the more complex the case became. It seemed that the killer had planned everything meticulously, leaving behind a trail of clues that were both tantalizing and misleading. You are one of the detectives, poring over the evidence, trying to make sense of the seemingly unrelated pieces. The smell of freshly brewed coffee fills the air as you sit at your desk, sifting through the case files, the sound of keyboards clacking and printers humming in the background. Suddenly, a colleague bursts into the room, a look of excitement on their face, holding a piece of paper with a breakthrough discovery. The paper reveals a shocking connection between the victim and the killer, a connection that will change the course of the investigation forever. As the investigation continued, the detectives began to uncover a shocking twist. The killer, it seemed, was not a stranger to the community. In fact, they had been hiding in plain sight, living a seemingly normal life, all the while perpetuating a campaign of terror and violence. You are one of the detectives, standing outside the killer's home, a sense of unease settling over you as you realize the true extent of their depravity. The house looks ordinary, with its neatly manicured lawn and cheerful flowers, but you know that behind the facade, a monster lurks. The sound of children playing in the distance fills the air, a stark contrast to the darkness that lies within. As you enter the house, you are met with a scene of utter chaos, the walls covered in disturbing symbols, the air thick with the smell of incense and something else, something sinister. The killer's lair is a testament to their warped mind, a place where they could indulge their darkest fantasies, and you can't help but wonder, how did they manage to hide this from the world for so long? As the news of the killer's capture spread, the community breathed a collective sigh of relief. The nightmare was finally over, and justice could begin to be served. But for the families of the victims, the pain would never truly subside. They would have to live with the knowledge of what had happened to their loved ones, and the fact that the killer had been hiding in plain sight all along. You are one of the family members, sitting in a crowded courtroom, waiting for the verdict. The air is thick with tension as the judge enters the room, their face somber and serious. The sound of murmured conversations and rustling papers fills the air, as the judge begins to read out the verdict. The killer is found guilty, and as they are led away in handcuffs, you can't help but feel a sense of closure, but also a sense of unease. What if there are more like them out there, waiting to strike? Today, the case is closed, but the memories of the victims will never be forgotten. The community has begun to heal, but the scars will always remain. As we look back on the events that unfolded, we are reminded of the darkness that lurks within human nature, and the importance of vigilance and justice. You are one of the detectives, standing outside the police station, looking out over the community. The sun is setting, casting a golden glow over the town, but you know that even in the brightest of times, darkness can lurk. The sound of sirens fills the air, a reminder that the work of justice is never truly done. As you reflect on the case, you can't help but wonder, what drives someone to commit such heinous crimes, and how can we prevent it from happening again? The answer, much like the killer's motives, remains a mystery, a haunting question that will continue to plague us for years to come. As we conclude this harrowing tale, we are left with more questions than answers. The darkness that lurks within human nature is a mystery that may never be fully understood. But one thing is certain: justice will always be sought, and the truth will always be uncovered. If you've made it this far, thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of darkness. Like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime stories, and share your theories on this case in the comments below. And as you drift off to sleep tonight, remember, the darkness is always out there, waiting to strike. Will you be ready?